I found out my boyfriend and sister were secretly dating. I decided to get revenge and make them pay for how they treated me. Life has a tendency of delivering unexpected turns, don't you think? I never imagined that I'd be here sharing my heart with strangers online. Up until a month ago, I believed I had everything figured out. I'm a 48-year-old woman living in New York City. In addition to having a close-knit family and a loving boyfriend, I was the vice president of a prosperous advertising agency. Right now, nothing is certain to me. It all began on what appeared to be a typical Tuesday when I realized I had left my USB drive at home. I was in a hurry to attend a crucial customer appointment. Not a huge thing, right? I requested my sister Sarah, 44, who was spending the week with us, to email me the files. When I contacted her, I had no idea how much one small request would rock my world. My heart stopped when I opened Sarah's email. I was staring at private messages between her and my boyfriend, Tom, 45. I initially assumed it was some sort of twisted prank, but the terrible reality dawned on me as I read through the numerous conversations. For the previous 6 months, my sister and my boyfriend had been having an affair. I felt like I was going to be sick. I could hardly grasp my phone since my hands were shaking so much. Hoping I was misinterpreting those messages, I must have read them a dozen times. However, everything was in black and white, including the inside jokes, the flirty banter, and the in-depth accounts of their covert meetings. How I handled that client encounter is beyond me. My mind was spinning from everything I had learned, and I was operating on autopilot. I hurried home as soon as it was over, resolved to face Tom. He was sitting on the couch watching television as if nothing were wrong. When I stormed into our apartment, my blood boiled at the sight of him, so careless and uninformed. "How long?" I threw my phone at him. After a brief moment of confusion, his face became pale as he realized what I had seen. He stammered, "I don't know what you're talking about." But I could see the remorse in his eyes. "Don't lie to me, Tom." I spat. "I noticed the messages, you and Sarah." He initially tried to deny it, but as I recounted passages from their conversations, he broke down. He finally said, almost inaudibly, 6 months. "It just happened. We didn't intend for it to happen," he said, but I interrupted. I didn't want to hear his justifications. 6 months. Half a year of deceit and treachery. He was with my sister while I was working late, assuming he was watching television at home. I became physically nauseated at the thought. "Get out," I said, my voice trembling with hurt and rage. "I never want to see you again." Tom remained silent as he gathered a few items and left. I was alone in the apartment we had shared for the past 2 years. As soon as he left, I started crying. I wept until my eyes were dry. Afterward, I sat there, feeling empty and numb. How could they hurt me like this? Since I was a child, Sarah had been my best friend and sister. Growing up, we had shared everything: dreams, clothes, and secrets. And Tom, he seemed like the one to me. We had discussed getting married and building a future together. Now everything felt like a lie. The following day, I called Sarah. I wanted to hear it from her directly. When she answered, I could tell she already knew. Her face appeared on my screen, swollen from crying. "I'm so sorry," she began, but I interrupted her. "Why?" I asked, my voice cold. "Why would you do this to me?" Sarah started crying. "I didn't mean for it to happen, Tom, and I just clicked. I think I'm in love with him, but I know that's no excuse." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. "Are you in love with him, in love with my boyfriend, my own sister?" It felt like a knife twisting in my stomach, and I felt more alone than ever. Without saying anything else, I hung up. I contacted our parents, John, 55, and Mary, 53, wanting to talk to someone who might help me make sense of this. I thought they'd be sympathetic and supportive, and that they'd be outraged on my behalf. Instead, their response made me feel even more betrayed. "Oh, honey," my mom said after I told them everything. "Sarah probably didn't mean to hurt you. You know how impulsive she can be." What I was hearing was unbelievable. She didn't intend to hurt me. She spent 6 months sleeping with my boyfriend. "Well, we can't rush things," my father added. "The most important thing is family. If you all sit down and talk, I'm sure you can work this out." Were they serious? How could I simply forgive and move on from something like this? They obviously cared more about maintaining family order than about my feelings. On top of everything else, their response felt like another betrayal. As the days went by, I alternated between intense fury and debilitating melancholy. I couldn't eat or sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tom and Sarah smiling together, their deception hanging over me. My thoughts were consumed with betrayal. I wasn't interested in playing happy families, but my parents kept calling, trying to set up a family meeting to sort things out. How could I ever trust Tom or Sarah again? During one of these phone calls with my mother, I snapped. She was rambling on about forgiveness and moving on. "No," I said firmly. "I won't act like everything is fine. They can't be forgiven for what they did, but it's not healthy to hold on to anger, sweetie," she replied. "You must understand. I need my family to realize how much I'm hurting," I interrupted. "But I'm done, because it's obvious that won't happen. I've had enough of Sarah, I've had enough of Tom, and this is the end of our talk." With my heart pounding, I hung up. For the first time since this nightmare started, I had clarity. I had had enough of being the victim. I had to take charge of my life once more. I scheduled a meeting with a lawyer and called in sick to work the next day. As I told my story, Jessica 50 listened calmly, then leaned forward, her eyes focused and alert. "You have choices, and you have been wronged," she said. "Given your professional relationship with Tom, we can investigate this from a number of perspectives, including emotional distress, breach of trust, and potentially even workplace harassment." For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of hope. Hope for justice, not for forgiveness or reconciliation. I wished I could transform this suffering into something strong. "How about Sarah?" I asked. "Is there anything we can do to stop her involvement?" Jessica gave a slow nod. "Even though dealing with family members is more complicated, there are still options available. We can at least make sure any shared family assets are protected." That afternoon, as I left Jessica's office, my head buzzed with possibilities. For the first time since discovering the affair, I felt a sense of direction and purpose. I was no longer just a victim. I was a woman with a plan. I sat down at my computer that evening and began outlining my goals. I wanted to protect my financial future, expose Tom's unethical behavior at work, ensure Sarah was held accountable, and show my parents that I wouldn't be coerced into ignoring what had happened. I felt empowered as I typed. Yes, I had been hurt. Yes, I had been deceived. But I refused to let that define me. I was going to turn this suffering into motivation for a new phase in my life. I knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would be more conflict, difficult conversations, and perhaps even more betrayal. But for the first time in weeks, I felt strong. The next day, I returned to work. I would take a proud stance and start implementing my goals. Sarah and Tom thought they could treat me poorly and get away with it. My parents thought they could use guilt to manipulate me into forgiving them. They were all going to learn how wrong they were. As I shut down my laptop and prepared for bed, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. The devastated, deceived victim I had been for the last 2 weeks was no longer there. She had been replaced by a woman ready to face any obstacle. She was a fighter. "Watch out, world," I whispered to my reflection. "I'm coming back stronger than before." For the first time since everything started, I felt at peace as I turned off the light and went to bed. I was eager to begin the first day of my new life, which would start tomorrow. I'm going to ask you now, Reddit, have any of you been in a similar situation? How did you respond? Do you think my revenge plan is excessive, or is my desire to hold them all accountable justified? As I start this new path, I would appreciate any advice or support you can offer. Update 1-2 weeks have passed since my last post, and I'd like to express my gratitude to everyone for their guidance and encouragement. Your comments have been a lifesaver during this challenging time. I'll give you an update on what has happened. The revenge strategy, which, in retrospect, was more about justice and reclaiming control than getting even, is proceeding. After talking with my lawyer, Jessica, I decided to take several steps. First, we filed a formal complaint about Tom's inappropriate behavior and his relationship with Sarah with his HR department. Since we are in the same industry, it was a risky move, but I couldn't let him get away with it. The response was swift. Tom was put on administrative leave while an investigation was conducted. I'll admit I felt a little satisfaction as I watched him leave the building with a box of personal belongings. However, that feeling didn't last long. I was struck by the fact that my private life was now fodder for office gossip. My role at work has become more complicated. Even though my supervisors have been supportive, I can feel the sidelong glances and whispered conversations that stop when I enter a room. It's obvious people are curious about how much I know and what my stability is. In an effort to prove that my personal drama wouldn't affect my work, I've thrown myself into my job. Things have become more complicated on the family front. Do you remember how my parents insisted on a family meeting to work things out? It was a disaster, but it did happen. We met at a quiet downtown restaurant. The moment I walked in and saw Sarah sitting there, looking anxious yet defiant, my blood pressure shot up. My parents were there too, acting as mediators. My father started, "Girls, we're here to talk this out like adults. Until we figure out how to proceed, nobody's leaving." I couldn't contain my laughter. "Are you serious?" I asked. "There's no way to move past this." Sarah trembled as she spoke. "I know what I did was wrong, I'm sorry, but shouldn't we at least try to resolve this?" "Resolve this?" I said. "You spent 6 months sleeping with my boyfriend. Day after day you deceived me. What do you want me to do, pretend it never happened, and give you a hug?" My mother interrupted. "As a family, we just want to work through this. You two have always been so close." "We were close," I corrected her, "until you two destroyed that." The conversation took a different turn. My parents begged. Sarah cried. I felt numb. It was clear they expected me to put family unity above my feelings and forgive them. I had had enough of the guilt tripping and pointless discussions. After an hour, I stood up. "This is useless," I said. "It seems like you've all decided how this should go without considering my feelings. Well, I'm not playing along, I'm finished." I heard my mother calling after me as I left, but I didn't look back. I disabled their social media accounts and phone numbers that evening. It was a bold step. Things took an interesting turn with Tom. He contacted me a few days after being placed on leave, asking me to withdraw my complaint to HR. Rather than offering an apology or asking for forgiveness, he begged me to handle it privately, saying this could destroy his career. His audacity astounded me. "Take it private?" I asked. "Like how you and Sarah kept your 6-month affair secret." Tom argued that his career was on the line, but I reminded him, "You should have thought of that before sleeping with my sister. Your actions have consequences, Tom." Hearing the desperation in his voice gave me a certain sense of satisfaction, but I was also worn out from the drama and the constant reminders of their betrayal. I decided I needed a change, a fresh start. I started researching job opportunities in other cities. The thought of uprooting my life was both exciting and terrifying, but the more I thought about it, the more it seemed right. A boutique agency in Seattle made an offer after a round of interviews. Though it was a lateral move in terms of my career, the chance to reinvent myself and change my surroundings was invaluable. When I gave notice at work, my supervisor was supportive but reluctant. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "You've built a solid career here. Don't let personal issues pull you away." "I'm positive," I assured him. "I need to start fresh personally and professionally." Many of my colleagues supported me in private. I realized I had more allies than I thought. As for Tom and Sarah, well, I haven't heard from either of them since I left. It's been weeks since I've even seen them. My parents, on the other hand, have been trying to patch things up through text messages and occasional calls. But I've had enough. The only family I need now is me. As I prepare for this new chapter in my life, I feel hopeful again. I'm moving forward one step at a time. It's been over a month since I made the decision to leave New York behind and start a fresh chapter in Seattle. I've settled into my new apartment, and I'm starting to feel like I can breathe again. Looking back on everything that's happened, it feels almost surreal. My life as I knew it was shattered in ways I never could have anticipated, but here I am standing stronger than before, learning to rebuild and coming to terms with the person I was and the person I want to become. When I first arrived here, it was like stepping into a new world. Seattle is beautiful, peaceful, and full of possibilities. The air is crisp, the coffee shops are warm, and every corner seems to offer something new. It's the complete opposite of the suffocating atmosphere I'd left behind in New York, where every day felt like a battle of wills against the office drama, against my family's guilt tripping, and most painfully, against the betrayal of people I thought I could trust. Now, I wake up to the sound of rain, not the hum of traffic, and the quiet mornings give me the time I need to think and reflect. I've been working at the boutique agency for about 2 weeks now. It's a small, close-knit team, and I can already tell this is going to be a place where I can thrive. The work is challenging, but in a way that's invigorating. My new colleagues are kind, professional, and none of them know my backstory. There's a part of me that's grateful for that. Being someone new means I don't have to be weighed down by the ghosts of my past. No one here knows about Tom, Sarah, or my family. And for the first time in a while, I feel like I can truly focus on me. The first week was a blur of new faces, new processes, and an endless stack of projects to dive into. But something about the way this company operates feels right. It's less corporate, more personal. I don't feel like I'm just another cog in the machine. I've been given real responsibility from the start, and I know it's a chance to prove myself, not just to my new boss, but to myself. One thing that surprised me was how easy it was to leave behind the weight of my old life. At first, I worried I'd be constantly checking my phone for messages from my parents or Tom. I worried they'd show up at my door desperate to apologize or fix things. But that never happened. I still get the occasional text from my mom, usually with an empty "I miss you" or a reminder that they love me. But I've stopped responding. I've realized that love doesn't mean anything when it's paired with betrayal. As for Tom and Sarah, they're nothing but a distant memory now. The last time I heard from either of them was a week before I left New York. I got a message from Tom apologizing and begging me to meet. He asked if we could talk about what happened, maybe try to clear the air. But I wasn't interested in hearing it. I knew what I needed to do. I called him once just to let him know that I had left. I told him I was starting over, that I was done. I was firm, no tears, no second chances. I told him that I couldn't afford to keep allowing myself to be a victim of his and Sarah's selfishness. Tom was silent on the other end of the line for a long moment. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. "I don't know what to say," he finally said, his voice low and uncertain. "Then don't," I replied. "Just don't. There's nothing left to say." I ended the call without another word. As for Sarah, I haven't heard from her at all. Not since the last disastrous attempt at a family meeting. It's like she's vanished, hiding in the aftermath of her choices, unwilling to face the consequences. I can't say I miss her because the truth is I don't. The woman I thought was my sister no longer exists to me. The betrayal cut too deep, and I can't pretend to have a relationship with someone who would so easily destroy everything we had. It's strange, though. Sometimes I wonder if I should feel guilt for cutting them off completely. But when I allow myself to think about the lies, the manipulation, the selfishness, they don't deserve my forgiveness. They don't deserve a second chance in my life. I've spent enough of my life trying to please them, bending over backward for their comfort, while they took advantage of my kindness. Now I'm taking the time to heal and move forward without them. What's even more surprising is that I feel stronger. I thought leaving New York would feel like a loss, but instead it feels like a new beginning. I still have days when the loneliness creeps in, when I miss my old friends and the comfort of familiarity. But those moments are fleeting. One thing I've learned over the past couple of months is that the strength I was searching for outside of myself was always within me. I had to give myself permission to embrace it. I had to believe in my own worth and not allow others to define my value. Work has kept me busy, and I'm thankful for that. There's something about diving into a challenge that makes me forget the personal turmoil for a while. I'm beginning to see new opportunities for growth, not just in my career but in my personal life as well. I've met a few people here, nothing serious, just casual acquaintances for now. But it's nice to connect with others who don't know my history, people who only know the new me, the one who's focused on moving forward, not looking back. I've started to take better care of myself too. I joined a yoga class to help center myself and calm my mind. I also started cooking again, something I'd stopped doing when everything with Tom and Sarah went down. It's simple stuff, but there's something grounding in preparing a meal for yourself, knowing that you're nourishing your body, that you're taking care of yourself. I've also started volunteering at a local women's shelter a few times a week. Helping others has given me perspective on my own situation. I realize just how lucky I am to have the resources to start over. Not everyone has that. The women I meet there, many of them dealing with things I can't even begin to understand, remind me of how strong the human spirit is when it's forced to survive. It's humbling and empowering at the same time. But most importantly, I'm learning to trust myself again. Trusting my instincts, my decisions, my ability to move forward even when it feels impossible. I've realized that forgiveness isn't about letting people off the hook, it's about freeing myself. And I've done that. I've freed myself from the weight of their lies, their manipulation, and their expectations. As for my family, they've tried to reach out, but I'm still not ready to open that door. My mother has been sending me texts and emails, apologizing for not being there for me. She says she misses me and wants to fix things, but I'm not sure if that's possible. I'm still trying to figure out how to move forward in my own way before I even consider what role, if any, they'll play in my life going forward. A part of me wonders if I'll ever fully heal from the betrayal, but I know I'm on the right path. I've come so far already, and there's still so much more to learn about myself. Every day, I wake up and choose to be better than I was yesterday, and that in itself is enough for me right now. The old me, the one who let herself be defined by others' choices, is gone. In her place is someone who stands tall, who knows her worth, and who isn't afraid to walk away from anything or anyone who doesn't align with her values. I'm not perfect, but I'm whole, and I'm building a life that's mine, free from the toxicity and lies that once consumed me. So what's next? Well, for now I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm focused on my new career, new friendships, and new experiences. I'm open to the future, but I'm not rushing into anything. There's still so much more to my story, and I can't wait to see where it takes me next. Final update. It's been nearly 6 months since I left New York, and embarked on this new journey in Seattle. I've made more progress than I ever thought possible, and the person I am now feels like someone I barely recognize compared to who I was just a year ago. The path wasn't easy, and there were many moments when I wasn't sure I could keep going. But somehow, through sheer determination, quiet moments of reflection, and the support of the few genuine people I've met along the way, I've found peace. The apartment I've made my own is now filled with little touches that make it feel like home. There are photos of places I've traveled to, books I've finally had the time to read, and even a few plants that have flourished under my care. I smile when I see them, a reminder that I've nurtured something back to life. Work has continued to be a positive outlet, and I'm growing in ways I never anticipated. The team I work with is like a second family now, supportive, challenging, and kind. We've been through tight deadlines, late nights, and small victories together, and each step forward has solidified my sense of belonging. I no longer feel like I'm on the outside looking in. In fact, I think I'm starting to understand what it truly means to be part of something bigger than myself. I've kept busy, but it's not the same frantic, anxiety-driven busy that plagued my old life. No, this is different. This is a kind of peace that comes with knowing my boundaries, my priorities, and my worth. I've set up boundaries with work, with friends, and even with the occasional check-ins from my family. For the first time, I'm not apologizing for taking care of myself first. The yoga classes I started taking a few months ago have become a cornerstone of my daily routine. It's not just about physical health anymore, although I've never felt better in my body. It's about mental clarity, about learning to be still in a world that constantly demands more of you. The breathing exercises help me find calm, and the stretches remind me that flexibility is key physically, emotionally, and spiritually. As for my personal life, I've kept it simple. I've met a few people, some I like more than others, but I haven't rushed into anything. The thought of being vulnerable again scares me, but I've learned that I can take my time. I'm no longer chasing a version of love that isn't healthy or fulfilling. Instead, I'm learning how to be content on my own, something I never thought I could do before. And while I'm open to the possibility of a relationship, the end goal, it turns out, is peace and self-love. The few people I've kept in touch with from New York have been a solid support system. I'm close with a few of my old colleagues who understand the journey I've been on, and their encouragement has helped me stay grounded. They remind me that what happened wasn't my fault. They remind me that I deserve better. That reminder has been crucial as I move forward. And what about my family? I've been asked this a lot by those around me, people who care for me and want to see me heal completely. The truth is, I haven't fully let go of the idea of them, but I've also realized that healing doesn't mean I have to welcome them back into my life on their terms. I've found a sense of closure within myself, a peace that comes from accepting what they did, but no longer allowing it to define my narrative. I did eventually respond to my mother's messages, but only in the way I felt was healthiest for me. I let her know that I was doing well, that I was okay, but that I needed space. I told her that I wasn't ready to rebuild that relationship. I needed to focus on me to continue healing and to not look back at the damage they caused. I haven't heard from her since. And for the first time, that's okay. I'm at peace with it. Tom and Sarah, I never expected them to apologize, and I'm not holding my breath for it. What they did will never be forgotten, but I've let it. They are part of my past, but they no longer have a hold on my present or my future. I can't help but think about the person I was when I first left New York, broken, bitter, and unsure if I would ever fully heal. Now, as I sit here reflecting on everything I've overcome, I can say with certainty that I have. I have grown, changed, and discovered a version of myself I never knew existed. And that person is strong, capable, and worthy of all the good things that life has to offer. So where does this leave me now? It leaves me exactly where I need to be, in a place of quiet strength, The next chapter is still unfolding, and I'm excited for whatever comes next. There are no more expectations, just a willingness to embrace whatever comes my way, knowing that I am enough as I am. The story of betrayal, loss, and heartbreak is no longer my story. My story is one of resilience, of starting over, and of becoming the person I was always meant to be. And for the first time in a long time, I am at peace with that.